right, welcome to the show. And as I said right in the beginning, that we are looking over the next few minutes, specifically focusing on seat belts and safety and what you can do and how you can protect yourself and keep yourself safe. This in the backdrop of former Tata Sons chairman Cyrus Mistry's tragic death, which has put the spotlight squarely on road safety and seat belts. It's a widely known fact that seatbelts are the biggest life-saving device in the car, yet their use is completely ignored in most cases on an everyday basis. We also know that seatbelts can't be forced. So what's the alternative? Can manufacturers introduce designs that make the vehicles accident safe? Is there better awareness programs which need to be carried out by the government, by the states or the center in order to ensure that there's also proper implementation, awareness plus implementation of seatbelts, and how people can protect themselves while they are on the road? Of course, high-end cars come every day, but is enough being done to raise awareness about safety while driving? To discuss this further, I am joined on the show by Mulls Sorabji, editor, Autocar India, and also by Professor Pradeep Sarkar, who's a road safety expert. Thank you, both of you, for joining us and sparing your time for talking about this very important issue that, in fact, we have probably been highlighting ever since Cyrus Mistry's tragic death. But, you know, it's never enough. Mulls, to you first, if I can just go to you first. You know, you have been you are a reputed, journalist in the country who has been covering the automobile industry. How many press conferences have you attended where, you know, the car companies have actually highlighted on seatbelt safety? You know, it's an important aspect in that case also. In your personal experience, do you think that conversation even comes up in terms of the features of the car that's being sold?
To be honest, it has come up in the past, but it's come up sporadically. I think at one time it was Maruti who had started a campaign of buckling up. So, you know, it has been done. But, you know, just telling people and preaching what is the obvious, I don't think that works, especially where we overall have a culture where we give safety a very low priority. I mean, you know, in our everyday lives, I mean, just see the number of people getting killed crossing train tracks just because they don't want to take a footbridge. So that just shows you what kind of weightage we give to our own personal safety. So, you know, while saying it again and again, that's fine. But I think things have to, be taken a step further than, as I say, preaching the obvious. And, you know, something simple like a rear seatbelt reminder, which now is happening. I'd written a column on this 6 months ago, that how a rear seatbelt reminder would actually be more safer than all the airbags in a car. Because, you know, whatever you say, if it's you have to see what's more inconvenient, that buzzer going off constantly or putting the belt on. And obviously, a lot of people would belt up as a consequence of that. And, you know, it's really sadly come true in the case of Cyrus Mistry, where you had a car, a very safe car with all the safety features, all the safety features, you know, were deployed by design. All the airbags were deployed. But, you know, you just, when the occupant himself doesn't belt up, you know, what can you do? So I think really this is quite unfortunate. And I think, you know, we have to really, it'll take, I don't know whether it'll happen, but it'll take a long time, a generation for people to really inculcate a sense of safety, not just on the road, but in everything we do.
Right. Mulls, before I go to Professor Sarkar, one more question to you. Do you think what exactly, I mean, now Nitin Gadkari is saying, we'll make it mandatory, we'll impose fines, etc., etc. But rear seat belt is, in fact, still, despite the fact that it exists, I mean, and there are, as you said, sporadically probably awareness or, you know, some sort of a campaign being run by from certain sections in order to make sure that it is followed as well. But is enough being done by the government in the past, as per your experience, whether it's the front or the rear seat belt?
I think, you know, having said that, the government, in fairness, has done a lot towards road safety. I think one kind of, let's say, measure they brought in, a very effective measure and a very cost-effective measure, was the speed limit warning, 120 kilometers an hour. Not many countries in the world have it, but we have it. So you have, and at 80 kilometers, you have one chime, and then at 120, a constant chime. You know, something like that is so frustrating. It really makes you back down and drive at a lower speed. And at the end of the day, speed is the number one killer. The slower you go, the less chance there is to have an accident. Of course, it's all relative depending on the road conditions, the cars you have, but this is an indisputable fact. So something like that, I think, was a very, very, very effective measure. But then when you start going on insisting on airbags without looking at, making sure that the people are forced to be restrained properly, because the safety is the primary restraint mechanism, the number one lifesaver in a car. So I think a lot more needs to be done on making sure that seatbelt usage is deployed, and I think here even the manufacturers have to play a role. They should have voluntarily had a seatbelt reminder in the back of all their cars. Now they don't do this because it's inconvenient to passengers, their customers don't like it. And I'll be honest, today a lot of manufacturers chasing this GNCAP star rating, which is made out to be the ultimate measure of safety. Clearly it is not, as we have seen over here. That you can have the safest car in a crash rating, but it doesn't necessarily save your life if there are certain measures,
Right.
which you need to do. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done, at a more holistic approach as to making people, forcing that. I don't think making aware is going to work. You've got to have more enforcement and force them to use these safety measures.
Right, like we have seen in terms of, even asking people to wear the mask at the, right at the peak of the pandemic. Going across to Professor Sarkar here. Professor Sarkar, there's also an aspect of road design and safety. For example, as far with this particular case itself, with the Cyrus Mistry case, we had in fact seen where the forensic report also says that there was a flaw with the road design. Although the death must have, they are still saying it was because of the fact that the passengers were not belted at the back. But there's also an aspect of a faulty road design which had a role to play somewhat in this particular car accident. How much and what effort do you think still remains to be done in terms of road safety and the way urban planning is done, so to speak? We have projects coming up right, left and center, and basis that highways come up, expressways come up. They are just like, put in place over there basis the projects which are coming up, the new the societies and housing societies which are coming up. Do you think somewhere around down the line, urban planning has in fact been in some way affected, or road safety has been some way affected because of the, hyper-urbanization or the increased pace of urbanization?
You raised a very important point. I'd like to say that even I'm also a road safety auditor, because when any road is designed right from initial stage, preliminary feasibility, then detailed project report, then during the construction stage and during the operation stage, we are going through the mandatory requirement of conducting road safety audit. And road safety audit guarantees us that how safe the road would be. So therefore, and as I said in the beginning, I also have played an important role as a road safety auditor for a long time. And because all the stages you need to do the review and audit, the design which has been taken place, even in the preliminary stage. So therefore, I feel that, as you said very rightly, that Mr. Mistry has met with an accident. There is a faulty road geometry. I think when you're negotiating the section of the road, there has been some problem in the obstacles that has come on the roadside. I'm not very sure. I have not seen the forensic report, but as I understand from the newspaper, that obviously it's a problem of the poor road design. Because now
Right.
So the question is, who is going to be the authority to take the responsibility? The owner of the roads, practically, whether it's a municipality or the PWDs, whoever may be, they has to take the responsibility, because in case it is a transparent process. In case they do not come forward, take the responsibility, then how will you pinpoint?
Right.
So we've got to give the lessons to the society that in case anybody do any fault in the design, he has to be penalized.
Professor Sarkar, hold your thought there. We also have callers who are, calling in to us to ask questions to both of you. I have Mr. Natarajan there from Chennai who has joined us on the phone line. Mr. Natarajan, do you have any question for our experts or any particular concern you would like to raise as far as speed on the roads and seatbelt safety is concerned?
See, my family is also one of the sufferers of this incident. Actually, my son was traveling from Chennai to Bangalore. So in between the window, he was driving at 150 kilometer speed. It was a new car. Even we had not received the RC book also. In the slight turn, it got skidded and it rolled 3 times. Okay, it rolled 3 times. But my son never wears that safety belt, But fortunately, on the particular day, he wore that safety belt, and that saved him. And even though the car rolled 3 times, I could not. Thankfully, there was not a single scratch on any of my body of my son. So it has saved. But my question is, if the passenger sits on the back side, even if they started wearing this safety belt, how this airbag is going to be useful? Can somebody throw a light on this?
Right. Thank you. Very good question and very relevant question, Mr. Natarajan. Thank you for that. And Mr. Sarkar, would you like to take that first? Basically the rear seat belt, first of all, is still a very novel concept in our country. Maybe in some European countries or America that is being followed more rigidly. But in terms of rear seat belts, how important is it on our daily lives? Like, in cities, while traveling, even in Mumbai for that matter, I'm stuck on the road for hours. For me, rear seat belt doesn't really matter because the speed of the car is probably not that much. That's what I would think. Like on a daily basis, what can people do in terms of rear seat belts?
No, you are absolutely correct. As the gentleman was mentioning, that in spite of, in case you were wearing a seat belt, and then perhaps there is interface between your seat belt and the airbag. So, and if you do not wear the seat belt, perhaps the airbag will not be functional. So, therefore, the question is that if somebody wears a seat belt, it becomes more safety related aspects being considered simultaneously, because therefore, there is a likely chances that he will survive. Because recent, as I see Mr. Mistry's accident, I think that he was not neither wearing the seat belt. As he was not wearing a seat belt, that means your airbag was not activated. Had he worn the seat belt, perhaps the airbag also would have been activated and he would have been saved. We have seen from the statistics, even National Safety Council, they have said from 1975 to 2017, there has been 3,74,276 lives could have been saved had people owned the safety belt. So this is one of the things. Airbag has been given a more impetus with respect to enhancing safety.
Right.
So these 2 things has to go simultaneously to make the people's life safe. That's my feeling.
Right. Let's take another call, which I'm getting, a caller from Mysuru who's called us. Charles, if you can hear me, what's your question to our experts? Okay, we seem to have lost that line with Charles. We'll go back to him. But I'm also joined by another caller. Jaya is calling from Mumbai. Jaya, your question, please.
Yes, thank you. While overspeeding has been the law of the day, there is no control for overspeeding. And so there have to be regulations, but more than the regulations is the implementation. Now, how are you going to implement the law against overspeeding? Anywhere on the highways and especially in the night, there's so much of risk because the overspeeding vehicles, they care not, they have knocked down people and they just run away from there. You just cannot track them also. And this has been the law of the day. And the youth especially who have vehicles, whether they're 2-wheelers or 4-wheelers, they enjoy overspeeding, it's in that Jawani Ka Josh one. And the seat belt issue, of course. Most of us in the back seats do not have this fear of the seat belt. We just hold on to something. And so these 2 issues have to be looked into, and the speed control in the vehicle, if the manufacturers or can have, it should be maximized. You can have 10 kilometers more if it's AC have it 90, 95, not beyond that. You should have a control in the vehicle itself. That is another way, I think. With my little knowledge, we do not know much about the manufacturing of all these vehicles, but this should be done and addressed to when the vehicles are manufactured. Because, crying after they die, I think some politicians have also died because of the seat belt issue. Sitting at the back, you don't have that. That is a must because we pay taxes, we pay for the vehicle with the seat belt. But that is a passenger's carelessness and indifference. That has to be addressed. Now, this has to be drilled into all the passengers, even if at the back have the seat belt on. One, because airbags alone are not going to be sufficient.
Right.
And the speeding limits, both in the vehicle itself, we should try and have them, and we should have some outside, controls. How you can't have people every kilometer on a highway, especially in the night. So for this has to be addressed seriously. Okay?
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your question and your comment, rather. I'm also joined by Mr. Ravi from Bangalore. You have a question, then we'll take it in a combined manner to our experts. Yes, Ravi.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just now I fell down my vehicle. I was traveling with my vehicle, two-wheeler. When I took a turn, I fell down. Just that road was not good, and this is the meaningless. He has got such a luxury car, and he is not wearing these rules. They make no. It is a burden on common people. So every time how many politicians wear belt? Whether it's such a luxury car he has died means suddenly they put a rules there and it will be a burden on our things. I fell down. I came there and I'm just got a bandage on my leg.
Right.
First of all, don't make rules when some luxury people will die. They'll make the rules and it will be definitely a burden on the common people.
All right. So sometimes the rules add to the burden of the common people. Point taken. Thank you, Mr. Ravi, for calling us. I am really sorry. I'm running out of time and I'll probably have to wrap this discussion now. But thank you so much, Mr. Urmaz Sarabji and Professor Pradeep Sarkar, for your very important insights into this very, very significant issue, which has now really put it up square and in the forefront of everyone's mind right now on what they can do, what all they need to keep in mind while stepping in that car and taking to the road. Seatbelt safety is of utmost importance, and that's what we want to highlight. Thank you so much for joining us. Right, on that note, we'll slip into a short break. News and updates continue on the other side.